If you're a heat and air conditioning technician or even a salesperson, why do you have to get good at explaining damage to heat exchangers, and why does it matter? This is a super important question. I'm Scott Bell. I'm coming to you live from Sacramento, California. I need a perfect day to talk about sales and a perfect day to talk about you for HVAC technician sales secrets. All right, so here's what happens is every single year there are technicians that go out and they do the unfortunate thing and they make stuff up and they lie about cracks in heat exchangers. So let's get this out of the way. There are scumbags in our industry that flat out lie. And I would put that at probably like 3% of the technicians. So for the other 97%, you're out there doing the right thing, taking care of your clients, taking care of your homeowners. Freaking congratulations. That's awesome. That's amazing. But the reason that you really want to get good at explaining damage is because at some point you are going to end up behind a knucklehead. Okay. So scumbag technician goes out to a home and says, hey, you've got a crack in the heat exchanger, and pulls out his phone. Could be a her. Pulls out their phone. They pull out their phone and they show old pictures. And I got to give you a heads up. If you really want to be good at what you do, it's like 2020s and beyond. Like as I'm filming this right now, it's 2023. But if you're watching it in 2024, 2025, 2026, 2030, whenever, they have these things called video cameras. And it's really hard to fake content on a video when you're like, hey, I'm at Bob Smith's house at 123 Apple Street, and here's what I'm looking at, okay? So if you really want to get good at explaining what's going on with the heat exchanger, you have to get good at explaining why a crack happens, okay? So there's like 4 categories: age, airflow, maintenance, and occasionally manufacturer. Some manufacturers are just worse than others. You know, you look at a York Diamond 80, those things hardly ever break. Those things hardly ever have a crack in the heat exchanger. They'll have a circuit board issue, but a heat exchanger, probably not. And so you got to be able to explain, hey, look, age and like how many repetitions a heat exchanger has gone through and expanded and contracted. Airflow, too small of a return, too tight of ductwork. Maintenance, oh, you haven't taken care of it, and sometimes occasionally manufacture. So you should be able to say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, given enough time, every one of these systems is going to do it. It's part of its lifespan. So knowing this allows you to explain damage better and easier. Doesn't mean that you're not going to get grief or not have problems. No, it just means that you're more of a professional. And so I'm going to give you a couple of extra tips, and it starts with slowing down the process. Now, I see technicians when I ride with them and I'm out in the wild, and the first thing they do is they get out of the attic after 10 minutes and they're like, hey, found a crack in your heat exchanger, you need a new furnace. And so realistically, at the end of the day, if somebody has a crack in their furnace and they got issues with their heat exchanger, that should be the last item that you're explaining. You should not lead off with it. It should be like, what caused it? What are the other issues? Was it age? Was it maintenance? Was it airflow? Was it manufacturer? And be able to have that conversation. And this is why you should join HVACTechSecrets.com. I'll give you the goods, not in the Facebook group, not in the YouTube channel. And you're like, Scott, well, what do I do? Well, first and foremost, I see people say, well, don't worry about a cracked heat exchanger, go get a carbon monoxide detector. And I'm not an attorney, I'm not a doctor, accountant, I'm not a lawyer, but I am a taco enthusiast. I might, if it was me, this is just me, I would be careful of saying, hey, go get a carbon monoxide detector, because what if that thing doesn't go off? What if the settings on it are wrong? There's too many what ifs. If you take a heat exchanger to any manufacturer under warranty, the only thing they care about is a crack, right? They don't ask carbon monoxide reading. They don't ask any of that. They look at it and they're like, it's cracked. We'll give you a new one. And so you have to be able to explain, it's a failed part. It's gone. It's like yes, you can have a flat tire in your car and the top of it is full of air, but the bottom of it isn't. You're just not going to be able to get the usage out of it. So when you learn how furnaces work, how they operate, the dangers, and then the conversations to have to slow this entire process down with your homeowners, with your clients, with the people that you serve, right? You're going to end up behind a knucklehead that made something up. But chances are good, if you've been to enough classes, you know where to look on furnaces, first bend, and the narrows on a clamshell. You know where to look. You know where these issues are going to be. Slow down the entire process. Be willing to explain. Here's what got us here. This system's 15 years old. I'm in Sacramento, that's Federal Region 4, which means there's 2,200 hours of heating and 1,800 hours of heating and 2,200 hours of cooling. Figure out how many times the system's going to cycle on and off in its lifetime if it's used in the same manner as everybody else. Most people don't realize that there's somewhere somewhere around 4,000 hours of usage every year on the air conditioner in their furnace. Like, we don't think in terms of that because we don't go to the thermostat and turn it on and off. So for you, for you as a technician, as a salesperson, as a manager, slow down the process. Explain a heat exchanger last. I'm going to promise you this. I've been on enough ride-alongs. I've trained enough technicians to know that at the end of the day, you should be talking about the heat exchanger at the very last, and your homeowner should be on board for a replacement if that's what they choose to do. Let's say that you're meeting with Mr. and Mrs. Smith and they decide to do nothing, right? Your company may say, hey, we're going to turn off the gas. If you decide to turn it back on, that's all on you. We left you how it is. Some states say, we're going to shut down the furnace. Some places say, well, just make a note of it and have the people write. Follow the instructions for your company, but if this was me, the last thing that I would do is go, oh, run the furnace and just use some carbon monoxide detectors. You could be, I'm not an attorney, you could be setting yourself up for some failure. You got one of three things to do from here, just one of three. Find the subscribe button, click on it every time I send out a video. You will get an update. 2, hit follow. 3, share this video with a friend. Get really good at explaining cracks in heat exchangers, how the furnace works, and be willing to slow down. Like, I could do it in 20 seconds, but I would probably take about 3 to 5 minutes to explain it. Just an added tip for you. We'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.